Once again, this is Prince Dykes here, the Royal Financial Investment Group. Pretty much, I'm going over today's topic. Was a question that was asked to me was asking me for my opinion on the rent versus housing. So, rent versus housing is going to be today's topic. As always, before I jump into the topic, make sure if you want to leave comments and stuff like that, that's the best way to get in contact with me. My email address is prince@royalfinancial.com, but the number one way, the best way to get in contact with me is to drop me a comment below. If this is your first video, welcome. Thank you for watching my videos. I have about, 60 some videos up. Plenty of videos for you to go through. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, comment button, all that good stuff, share button, and whatever. Give me a thumbs up if it's good. Give me a thumbs down if it's not. If you find it of value, share it. Let me know. Let me know what I can do to get better. So that's the only way I'm going to get better, right? But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. So I want to get straight into the topic. I don't want to burn too much time. I know when I do a lot of videos like this, I am a little winded, but I like to talk, and this is something that I love and something I'm passionate about. So I kind of get lost up in my emotions, right? If you love something, you love to do something, then it doesn't feel like work. It comes so easy and it comes so natural. So I got asked a question that, what did I think about houses, mortgages versus rent? And I know that I can't even say his last name, Rob, whatever, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. I can't think of his last name. I know that he wrote a couple things as far as saying, speaking about rent and mortgages. So I want to give you my personal opinion. My personal opinion may not be 100% right. It may be 100% right. I back it up with numbers, but it's my opinion, right? So if it's your opinion, there's no such thing as having a right or wrong opinion. So first off, let me start by saying this. Suitability. Suitability means what is suitable for every person. So what may be suitable for you may not be suitable to the next person. I can't give you a suitable recommendation because I don't know your whole picture. Everybody's picture is different. I don't know how many assets somebody has, or liabilities, how much debt they have, and what they have in life, or what they plan on moving. So I don't know. So I can't give a suitable recommendation because I don't know the individual objective. I don't know what your objective is. So I'm going to give you a couple things, run down a couple things with my opinion on housing versus rent. So let's get straight into it. So first thing is, if someone who's paying rent versus someone who's paying a mortgage, both of them are paying out money. So if you live in a house, I live in a house and I'm renting a house, another person's living in a house and paying a mortgage, it's not an asset, it's a liability. Simple and plain. If you don't know what asset versus liability, asset and liability is, go back and watch my video, assets versus liabilities. But an asset is something essentially something that makes you money. A liability is something that costs you money. So if you live in a house and you paying a mortgage, is that making you money? Or is it costing you money? So it's a liability because you're living in that house. It doesn't become an asset until you're no longer living in that house, and then you're charging rent, then it's creating income for you. So if you're living in a house and you're paying a mortgage, then it's a liability. Somebody who's paying a rent, is it making them money? No, it's a liability. So what is the big difference? What would you recommend? How do I feel about it? I feel exactly what I just said about it, right? A liability is something that's costing you money. Now, this is the thing that a lot of people get mixed up on. This is my personal opinion. A lot of people look at a house as a status symbol. Hey, I bought this house. It makes people feel good. It's part of the American dream. One day I want to grow up and I want to buy a house, and this is the house I want. So hey, most people buy it off of a status symbol, not realizing the overall bigger picture. The good part about buying a house is that one day it has the ability to become an asset. That is correct. You can live in a house, you can pay your mortgage, one day you can pay your house off and you can sell it. One day you can rent your house out. Those things are great, but in order for you to rent a house out, you must have another house that you must be living in. See, when people look at accredited investor, or when it's adding up net worth, people don't add up your net worth of your primary house. So if you're living in a house, it doesn't go towards your net worth. So what is the real true value of buying a house and paying a mortgage? So let's say a lot of people say, hey, you know what? I looked at the rent. To rent this house is going to cost me $900 a month versus I can just get a mortgage and it costs me about $500-$600 a month. So hey, I save $400 and it's my house. Great, good on you. But what you have to keep in mind is that most of the times when people buy houses, it's not the house that they really want. They just get a house because they say, hey, I like this house, I can afford it, so they get what they can afford. Which means that in a few years, they're gonna do what? Sell it, move out, get a new house. So let's walk through this. You have a house that costs $100,000, and the mortgage is $500 a month. And let's say you live in it for 5 or 6 years, and you're like, hey, this is not the house I really wanted. It was a house that I can afford at that particular time. So you pay $600 a month, $600 a month for 6 years. Let me do the math on that. $600 a month for, I want to make sure I use my calculator, but I want to make sure I give out right numbers. So you're paying $600 a month, $600 a month for 12 months in a year. That's $72,000 a year. Times 6, since doing 6 years, $43,000, $43,200 to be exact. So he's paying $600 a month in the mortgage for 6 years. $43,000 that you could pay towards a mortgage. Now, the other piece you must keep in mind is, you have your property tax. Then also you have maintenance. Someone who's renting, the toilet stops working, they get on the phone, they call maintenance. They have no maintenance fees. But somebody else who doesn't, they have to pay maintenance fees. And maybe they want to upgrade the house. Things like that. It's your house, right? So after those 6 years, you're like, honey, this house is great. I'm making more money now. I decide, hey, I want to buy a new house. So when you get ready to go buy that house, because back in 2008, everybody's like, hey, the market is down. It's the lowest I ever seen the market. It's great. I think that, hey, it's a great thing. I think you should buy a house or whatever, right? Because the market is the lowest we've ever seen it in 2008. So if you bought a house in 2008, and let's say the house was 10 years old or 12 years old, you keep it for 6 years, and you say, hey, I want to sell it. Here comes 2014, 2015, the housing market is really not doing that well. So if you bought a house back in 2008, you probably paid $43,000 in mortgage. How many maintenance fees did you pay? And also your house still lost value. Because you got to think about it. Now your house is 16, 20 years old. And if I'm a person that's getting ready to buy a house, do you think I want a house that's 16, 20 years old already? No. Because since 2008, they don't build new houses, new styles, better houses, stuff like that. So I can buy a 16-year-old house or I can buy a 5-year-old house. That's something you must keep in mind. Because as time going along, your house is losing value in a way because people are still building new houses. They build a new house around the corner, things like that. Things like that can happen, right? So you may be losing money that way. Now, versus the person who pays rent, they can say, hey, you know what? I may have paid $800, $900 a month, but hey, I have the flexibility to where if I want to move, or if I want to save money to buy a house, I can do that. Now, another piece that you must keep into play is, let's say you're going on in life, you're not where you want to be at in life. People get their first job, they get their first situation, they get their junior in their career. And what happens is they say, hey, guess what? We have a promotion for you, but guess what? It's not in Georgia, it's in California. Now you're faced with the situation of, man, I have, someone who's renting, they can just say, hey, tell don't renew their lease, boom, they're out. They can move to California and rent them another place. No problems, no stress, anything going on back home. But someone who says, hey, you know what? I have a house. They already bought a house. Now it's like throwing an anchor in the water. They must stay within that radius. Or they must go with the problem with trying to rent out a house. When you rent out a house, you're going to accrue property manager fees. Maybe you have to get the grass cut, things like that. Then you have to worry about a tenant. A tenant didn't pay you some money, or a tenant did pay you some money. Things you have to run into those situations. And what I've noticed is that the people who does the best when it comes to like buying houses and renting them out and stuff like that, doing stuff like that, is people who have a pretty large set of disposable income. People who make pretty good money, where they can go off and move to California and pay for a house back in Georgia with no problem, with a tenant or not. Those people who do very well, because eventually they can take those situations to where it's not being rented. But like most Americans, a lot of people don't have that resource to where they have a large disposable income that they can just throw away back to a house, which adds on stress to a person. So let's say you're in Georgia, you get a job promotion or a lateral movement, you're moving sideways in California. You move to California, you have to rent a place, find a place to live, car, all of the good stuff. Now you still have to worry about a house back in Georgia, maintenance. The toilet doesn't work. Who pays for that? The grass needs to be cut. The property manager needs to get paid. If a tenant tears up your stuff and doesn't pay for it, all those type of things that you may have run into. So versus someone who's renting, right? So the best thing about paying a mortgage is that one day you can rent it out. That's the best thing. Because even if you do pay off a house, you still have to pay property tax, right? If you don't pay your property tax, what happens? They come take your house anyway. So do you own the house, or does the house own you when you're paying the mortgage? So a lot of people run off and they buy a house. They say, hey, you know what? I think, my personal opinion, if you're not trying to get into the real estate game, you're just like, hey, I just want to buy me a house. Don't think about should I rent a house or should I buy a house. My thing is that where are you at in your career, or where do you want to be? Is this the place you want to live? Is this the house you want for a while? Are you stable or settled in your career? You're not going to be, hey, in 2-3 years, I'm going to be moving. I need to move here, move there, things like that. If you're stable and this is a house that you think you really desire and that you want, then go ahead, knock yourself out. But like, hey, I want that upper mobility and I want to move up. And I'm living in a city where I don't know if I really like it. It's cool for now. I don't know if I want to stay here forever. Then I think you should hold off. That's my personal opinion. Because the last thing you want to do is you're junior your career, you get this great opportunity in New York, but man, I had this house. Now I'm stuck into whatever is in my near city. If I'm living in Atlanta, I bought a house, it's a beautiful house, but now I'm stuck to whatever's in Atlanta. But if you have a great job to where you can move to New York and pay for your house back in Atlanta and have no problem, you have a large disposable income, knock yourself out. But if you are like a lot of people who are in their 20s or in their early 30s, they're brand new to their career, they want to be open. You want to maintain flexible. Let's say if you hit a hard time in life, for example, and you need to make some cutbacks. You can cut back rent pretty easy. I live in a 5-bedroom house. I'm renting a 5-bedroom house. I can cut that down to a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a studio. I can cut that down to save money. But if you brought a 5-bedroom house, how can you cut that expense? How can you cut back on it if you needed to? You hit hard times in life. You need to save money. You need to put back money. How? You got laid off. Or your hours got cut, or your salary got reduced. How could you can't cut back on a mortgage, but you can cut back on rent. Well, there's certain things you can refinance and all of the good stuff to make your monthly bills lower. That's true. But we're talking about the overall, you paid $250,000 for the house, you have that monthly expense that's occurring, and then, boom, you have a wiring problem. Boom, the water pump went out, or whatever, the hot water heater is not working. That's your expense. Someone who's renting, they just pick up the phone and call maintenance. They can get a cheaper place. They're doing great at their job, they want a bigger place, they can rent a better place. They have that flexibility. Then they get a job promotion, they can up and leave if they need to, without worrying about the hassle of, man, I had this house back in Georgia that's not selling, or I had this house that's back in Georgia where the tenants did something to the house, or they didn't pay, or this happened, that happened. You buy a house, got the closing fees, these fees, need a lawyer fee, all that stuff like that. If you don't mind that, then knock yourself out. But my personal opinion is that most people who do well in that have a large disposable income. You don't have a large disposable income, you're not settled in your job, you're still kind of like, hey, I don't know what I want to do yet, things like that. Yeah, you probably can afford a house. Houses are very affordable. You can afford it, but do you want that burden? Do you want the extra stress? When you really boil it down, if you live in a house and you pay a mortgage, it is a liability. The person who's paying rent, it is a liability. The thing about it, that person who's paying rent will never be able to own that house. He can never sell that house. The person who's paying a mortgage, the mortgage may be $500, but they can turn around and rent it for $800-900. Something they can do. So those are the two things that I'm comparing and contrasting. But if you're sitting in a house and I'm sitting in an apartment, I'm paying rent and you're paying a mortgage, at the end of the day, on our monthly cash flow Cash flow is going out. No money's coming in. Just because you pay a mortgage, how's money coming in? Just because I pay rent, how is money coming in? So it is a liability until you create it and make it an asset, until you move away from that house and rent it out. So I don't want to be the dead horse. I think I covered everything. And then also, if you do pay off a house, you still got property tax. That's one thing I want to say. And you can sell it one day. You can sell it for a profit one day. But one thing you got to keep in common is, if you bought a house that was already 12 years old and you keep it for 12 years, you have to keep in mind that new houses are always being built. So if you want to get into the real estate industry, knock yourself out. But hey, I was asked the question. Hope to answer your question. Gave a little insight, my personal opinion. Leave a comment below. If you'd like to give me a thumbs up, if not, give me a thumbs down. Don't forget to like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching. As always, be safe. I'm out.